Hello and welcome. In this video I want to talk about market execution trades. There's a lot of questions that people are either A, asking why, or B, complaining that Sky Intern is not taking all of the market execution trades. That is the either buy by market or sell by market. So this video is going to address that and potentially ask some questions or answer some questions. One of those questions being, why am I missing so many market execution trades? And the next being, how can I catch them all? You know, if it's possible. Most people are asking and feeling like they have to catch every single trade, which, you know, if you're able to do so, then have at it. And so maybe in this video we'll address on how to at least catch a lot of them, if not all of them. But there are some stipulations to it, and you really need to understand the entire process. Now, while this is already addressed in the Sky Intern settings video, a lot of people either have not listened to it or still don't understand. So this is just an extension video to kind of explain it in a little bit more detail to hopefully that you can understand it much easier. So the first thing we need to do is really understand the process. And this is important because market execution trades are all about timing, So I want to just go ahead and break down the process really quickly, or try to at least do it really quickly, but it kind of turns into something much longer. So this is how this works. The master trader sitting at his desk, whether his or her desk, whether it be in the United States, whether it be in the UK, wherever your signal provider is that is calling this trade. Now they're watching this, they're reading the charts, and they're picking the pair, and all of a sudden they see a trade that they want to execute immediately. All right, so they end up charting it. They say, "Oh goodness, this is a market execution trade," and that moment, what they do is they execute the trade at their computer. They do a market execution trade, and they're using they put the take profit 1, 2, 3, whatever. Once that's done, then they put it in an alert format. All right, they go through the alert process. They type it all up. They type whatever graphic it is, or whatever email it is. However, they send it out to the thousands upon thousands of individuals. So it comes out into an alert. Then, in this case, ST Reader, a third-party app, will extract that information. We'll take that information, right? We'll take that alert, and ST Reader reads and checks for a new alert every 1 minute. All right, that's the minimum, and so a lot of people can actually have it longer than that, every 5 minutes, whatever. So it will at least take 1 minute to read it from the alert format. All right, so once the ST Reader reads it, it translates it. As long as it's valid information, it translates it and it sends it to your Gmail account. Now understand this, your ST Reader is at your computer or is at your VPS. Your Gmail account is at a completely different location, a server. So that information has to go possibly across the world just to get to a server that your Gmail account resides on. Then, once it's there, Sky Intern that's on your computer has to access that Gmail account, read that information. If it's valid, then it puts it into a format, then it creates a trade, and it sends that information to your broker, at which time your broker looks at the information and then says, okay, we will accept the information you provided, and then the trade is completed. All right, the trade has been activated. A lot of people think that from the master trader, from here to here, it's instantaneous, or rather, I'm sorry, here to here is instantaneous. It's like as soon as the master trader sends an alert, then it should automatically execute. This is quite false. It could take, the master trader could actually take the trade, take 1-2 minutes, place the trade, right? And then all the time that it takes to go through this process. Now realistically, with everything, with all the technologies out there, with servers, with internets going down or latency, with power outages, with servers being down or on maintenance mode, whatever, there's so many different scenarios. The thing about it is that a lot of people don't understand that it could take anywhere between 1 and 15 minutes. I don't know. Realistically, it could take up to 15 minutes to get from the master trader to your Sky Intern. It really could, for all different kinds of scenarios. So now, the whole point of this is I want to emphasize time. okay? Time. Because market execution, as I said earlier, buy by market, sell by market is all about time. Why? Because the market moves. The market moves up and down, up and down, up and down. So realistically, when the master trader called it here at the entry price, but notice how the market has been moving. And it's been moving while this entire process has been going on. As I mentioned in one video, in the settings video, I can't remember exactly which pair it was. It was quite a long time ago because it stands out. But it was like GBP odd. It executed and hit stop loss, a 50 pip stop loss, in less than 3 minutes. So if this right here, from this process to this process, takes if it took 3 minutes, it is possible that the market could move in 50 pips. It is highly possible. Already seen it. Again, I wanted to explain this process. It's super important that people understand it. It's not like as soon as the master trader called it, everything was instantaneous. We're in a society that we want everything immediately, and that's just not how it works. And if you think that, then you're delusional. You need to come to grips with this, because if the better you understand this process, the better you can plan for this. And know this, you don't have to hit every trade. You don't have to take every trade. What if that trade that you keep trying to take is always bad? So there's various ways to look at this. However, let's go ahead and stick to this. All right, why Sky Intern is not taking some of these trades and how it takes it. But again, remember this process, and remember that the market is continuously moving. So this is just another one where when SI reads the alert. So it went through the entire process. Here's the alert itself that it got from Gmail in a format that was given from the ST reader so that I can read it. It goes, from here to here. And again, what you need to understand is this is the information that came from the master trader at the moment that they took the trade. This is a reference point. So by the time now, if you were to take this manually, and by the way, let me ask you this question. If you got this manually and it just so happened that the market moved so fast and it got to TP1, which is right here, and let's say that this trade also has a TP2, and a TP3. Now again, the scenario is, let's say you get, by the time you see this trade, for whatever reason, don't overthink it. Let's say by the time you get this information and you look and you check and the market is already at TP1, will you get in that trade? I can almost promise you that 98% of the time, 98% of the time, people are going to say no. The other two are just extremely risky individuals. But typically when a trade gets to TP1, it has moved to TP1, no matter where TP1 is, normally you don't take the trade. So if you won't take the trade, then how can you expect Sky Intern to take the trade depending on where the market is? Again, it goes from the trade alert to an information. Here we go. And I'm using simple numbers here just to show this. Now look, by the time that he places this trade, the market is moving. Okay, the market is moving. We have no idea by the time where you get it. Now here's where it wants you to get in at. Okay, market execution or buy by market actually means get in right now, but it's trying to get you in as quickly as possible, as close to right here at the 100 mark. But while this process is going on, right, while the whole entire from trade alert to Sky Intern is happening, the market could be very well be moving right now. So what happens if by the time that Sky Intern gets this trade and the market is already here? Do you want it to get in? Because the only, here's the scenario, guys. Let's be realistic. Actually, let me back this up and let's do this. The market's moving, there's the 100, market's moving right here. Let's say it goes to 1 right now, as exactly when Sky Intern gets this trade. This is the only information it knows, right? Entry price, stop loss, and take profit. Now again, your stop loss is right here. But now the market is right here, okay? So we're talking about 110 pips away, because remember, stop loss is at 50. Oops, wrong. Hold on. Let me erase this. Stop loss is at 50, which is here. 50, okay? Now, if Sky Intern went and got into this trade, regardless of where it is, you are now 110 pips away from stop loss. If you were to go from here to here, you would lose 110 pips instead of 50 pips, which is what the master trader is what called. So realistically, you don't want to take this trade. If it all of a sudden the market you got into here and all of a sudden the market reversed, there's nothing to stop it except for the stop loss that it sees in that trade, which is way down here, and it is 110 pips away. Now, with that being said, Sky Intern has a protection. As a part of Sky Intern settings, we have entry price tolerance in pips, okay? And currently, I believe the default is set to 10. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Let's go back to the last one. So what that looks like is this. When Sky Intern gets this, it is going to look within 100 pips of where it is, at where the market is. So it's going to look to see where the market is. So if the market is moving, and it just so happens to be within 10 pips of the entry price right here, if it's within 10 pips, if it's within 10 pips, then it will get into that trade. Conversely, if it's outside of that 10 pip window, then it will not place that trade. And again, it's simply to protect you. So again, if it's way up here, it's not going to just automatically put you in that trade. Now, what I'm about to show you is primarily for when you're using the settings for lot size calculation, when you're using the setting of percentage. If you didn't know, you can change that between percentage and fixed. We'll explain this I'll try to explain this as quickly as possible, but it's just not an easy thing to really cover. All right, but percentage, again, the past videos, when you set it to percentage, you're basically saying that whatever this number is in percent, you're going to take that amount of percentage according to your balance to be able to calculate what your lot size is going to be. Here, when you have it set to fixed, you're basically saying this is my fixed lot size. Okay, so this is very, very different when it comes to entry pips, the tolerance. Okay, very different. Right now, we're going to discuss this one really quick to show you what it looks like. So right now, let's say we set this up for percentage, and our entry tolerance is 10 pips. So what happens is it's going to take a percentage. In this case, we'll do 3% of whatever the balance is. If we were to look at a pocket size calculator, or position size calculator, excuse me. Here's our balance. Let's say it's $3,000. We're taking 3% risk. 3% risk. And again, if we were to do this manually, we're going to say whatever the stop loss is. But right now, let's just go ahead and say that trade for this pair is 50 pips. If we do calculate, what it's going to say is your lot size for that specific trade is going to be 0.18. So again, if we come back here, our lot size with 3%, let me do this real quick, okay, 3% of a $3,000 account, sorry about this, it's ugly, but it gets there, 3,000 with a 50 pip stop loss, my lot size for that one trade is going to be 0.18. Now again, this is assuming that it gets in exactly 50 pips, all right? If it came in at the entry price. So now, what happens if my pip tolerance is set to 10 pips, right? 10 pips. And I just so happened the market was moving, and it just so happened to be at that 10 pip mark. All right, 10 pips. So let's say it's at 110, which according to our settings, we can actually get in this trade. Well, realistically now, when it does get in, it's actually going to be not 50 pips from stop loss. All right, it's going to be 50 plus 10. So now it's going to be 60 pips. Well, guess what? This lot size is only calculated for 50 pip stop loss. So what does that mean? If we go back and look at our calendar again, if we change this, now look, it's going to lose, regardless, it's going to lose 90, right? $90. But now my stop loss is now 60 pips. So in order to lose $90 at 60 pips, now notice my lot size change. Notice my lot size. I'm still going to lose $90 though. But if there was no calculation in there, if it was 50 pips and I used 0.18, but it ended up losing 60, I would lose way more than $90. Way more. 10 pips more, $1.80 per pip more. Okay, so I'd be losing way more money. But the good news, folks, is that when Sky Intern, depending on what this is set for right here, takes this trade and it ends up taking it within this pip tolerance, it will take that pip tolerance and add it to the stop loss calculation. It will take the stop loss calculation instead of 50, because that's what it was originally supposed to be. What it will do, it will add whatever that pip is. So let's say it came in at 9 pips over the entry price. Then what it'll do is it'll take 59 pips, calculate that, and now it will use this lot size for the trade, so that you're truly risking only 3% of that trade. Okay, so that's the good news. Again, if you want to go ahead and take every single trade, what you could do is change your pip tolerance. So if you wanted 25 pips, right? I'm sorry, 25 pips, and it'll add that to whatever the stop loss is. So again, let's just use 50 pips as an example. If it's 50 and you have your settings set at 25 and it comes in at 25 pips away, it's going to add that. And now the calculation is going to be 75 pips, which is still going to lose. If it does hit stop loss, it's still going to go 3%, $90. But in order to do that with that stop loss, it's going to use 0.012. A lot of you right now are probably saying, yes, exactly, that's what I need, that's what I need. Okay, well, let's take a look at something real quick. What about those who have smaller accounts? What if we have a person that has a $1,000 account? All right, let's just use that as an example. 50 pips. In order to do 50 pips, 3% of 1,000, look at what my lot size is. Now, if I just so happen to lift that pip tolerance up to 25 pips, right? Then that means we're going to add, let's say it comes in at 25 pips away, it's going to add that 25 to it. Now, look at my lot size. It gets smaller and smaller. So the point is that if I had a person with a $500 account and they try to use a 25 pip stop loss and they get a trade with the 50 pip, a 25 pip tolerance, and they get a trade with 50 pips, their lot size is going to be 0.02. So at some point, the more tolerance you add, the smaller the lot size, which means the less money you're going to earn. So just understand it's going to eat away at your profits too, and it's going to get to a point where it can only go so far down to where it's going to be 0.01 lot. So just understand that. Be aware of that. Okay. Now, if you have a higher balance, maybe not so much of a big deal. You're still going to lose $90, and your lot size is going to be 0.102. Conversely, what that means also is that if Sky Intern takes 3 orders, right? If there's a TP1, TP2, TP3, it now has to split this lot size into three orders. So depending on that, if it's 0.12. then now it's going to break, and it takes all 3 orders, it's going to have to now break that up by percentages for each one. So at some point, if you have your pip tolerance so high that your overall lot size is very low, you may not be able to take all 3 trades. If that was your intent, if your intent is to take all 3 trades, then that pip tolerance has a big factor in that. So, but the good news is that with a pip, a percentage setting, it will account for that gap. It will add those pips to your overall risk. Now, the downside is if you're using a fixed lot size. Now, if you're using a fixed lot size, then it's not going to calculate those extra pips. So going back to our position size calculator, if we have a $3,000 account, 3%, 50 pips, that's 50 pips. That's what, if you set this 0.18 as your lot size and it hits 50 pips, it's going to end up, the calculation is going to end up being a $90 loss, and it comes out to 3%. But what if it goes even further than that? What if it goes, remember you have, let's say you added, you had a 25 pip entry tolerance. So that's going to add 25 pips to that. But guess what? It's not going to change your lot size. So if it comes in at 25 pips up, but then goes straight down to stop loss, you're not losing 50 pips at 1.18. at 0.18, you're losing 75 pips at 1.8. Okay, so that's an extra 25 pips you're going to lose at 0.18. That's a lot of money, folks. You got to be, especially when it comes to fixed rate. Fixed rate or fixed lot sizes are complicated and dangerous as it is. But when you now want to take into account adding the entry pip tolerance, when you're adding it such a high number and it gets in at those high numbers, it doesn't account for this. Okay. So your losses, if it does, will be exponentially higher, which makes this not 3% anymore. It's going to make it much, much higher. So again, to recap, if you want to catch more trades and you're willing to risk it, you can absolutely add to this number. Every one of these fields are upgradable or changeable, according to your style. If you want to change it to 20 pips, then change it to 20. If you want to change it to 50, change it to 50. Will you get every single trade? Sure. It's highly possible. I promise you, even though you change to 50, you're probably still going to miss a trade or two. It's just the nature of the market. The market could be moving that fast, that quick. Depends on the pair, right? Each pair is different. So you got to take into account the entire process, right? And you also have to take into account the number and realize that it doesn't matter, folks. You're not going to catch every single trade. But you can try if you want to. And just remember, as you add into this, now, even though that it might be set to percentage, which will help you out, but your profit is going to significantly decrease because there's more percentage is going, being calculated towards that risk. So the total number of pips. If it's a fixed rate, your risk is losing more than what you're actually calculated for. So be very, very careful. So now to end this and to answer the question, I hope that it answered the question why Sky Intern doesn't take all the market execution trades, and the second question being how can I catch all of them if not more of them. And that is simply by changing the entry pips tolerance, and just again make sure please, this is absolutely your responsibility. However, we wish that you trade responsibly so that you don't lose your account, especially if it's a live one. All right, so go ahead and play around with that number, and hopefully you'll take more trades, but again, just understand a trade is only as good as what's called. Trades are going to lose if trades are going to lose. So no matter how, whether you get in it or not, if it was destined to lose, you're going to lose it anyway. Again, just be picky. I mean, this is the default of 10, but you can change it. So I hope this answers it. I apologize for it being so long, but again, it's just absolutely necessary to cover everything just so that you have a full understanding of how this works before you get up and on end and upset about thinking that Sky Intern is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. You need to understand the settings, what it does, how the market moves, the entire process before you chalk it up as the software is bad or whatever. All right, guys. Hope it helps. Take care. Bye.